Garden and the Moon is a knowledge center bringing together teachings and insights, experiences and stories, people and beings.
So it's such a pleasure, Melissa, to have you back on again into the Garden and the Moon podcast channel. Last time we had like beautiful conversation on, like the earth and the way to navigate the changes of our worlds and all those things. And you also explained your work a little bit more to people. So I think like a lot of the people listening to us are already familiar with what you're doing. And I'm really excited to share the news that you're releasing a new book this winter, this Christmas. That's a prayer book, and that's a book of a collection, I would say, of like prayers and invocation and, exercise. And really, I would love for this conversation to be around that book and around your own, practice with prayers and exercises and how they came about and all of that. So thank you so much for being here. And why don't you introduce your book to us? If you had to present it to people, who didn't know really what it was, like how would you describe it?
Oh, well, first of all, Emilie, thank you for having me again on this podcast. I really appreciate your work and what you're doing, connecting people all over the world with their spiritual practices and their spiritual awakenings. And it's great to know that there's a place where you can kind of find other like-hearted people. So thank you again for having me. I'm delighted to be here. Yeah, we do have a new book that just came out on Amazon, and so it's available now. And it is a collection of the different prayers, exercises, invocations, affirmations that I've collected over the years that have come through group workshops that we've done together, with our circle. And invocations really are what started it. So back in around 2015, I would do every year a New Year channeling. So on the New Year, which I'll be doing this year on the new moon on January 11th, a New Year channeling. And what started to happen was it wasn't like a predictive channeling, like, oh, this is going to happen this year, that's going to happen this year. It was more like a gathering of energy for the year, and Spirit would start to give me an invocation, would give me a theme for the year. This year's about unity. This year's about community. This year's about integration. This year is about awakening. So the last previous year that's now ending, we're still in it for a few days. 2023, it was called Balanced Awakening. And that invocation was about the idea that there's a grand awakening going on the planet, which I think everyone listening probably knows. But how can you manage the energy that's coming in to wake you up in a balanced manner? And so you have 365 days in one quarter, according to our calendar, to say this invocation during the year as you're dealing with the energies of the year that comes up. So it was those invocations that I noticed as I looked back over them, that they really seem to be a progressive step as to where we are in the current moment. So I thought, boy, it would be great to share these with everybody. So I started putting them together to share them. And then I realized that there are prayers that are very consistent over the years that came through from the different angels or the different deities, particularly Kuan Yin. She's my favorite prayer. So I believe the book opens up with her prayer, prayer to Kuan Yin. And it's a prayer that she gave us, about 20 years ago. And, it's one that in times of stress, I'll go to that prayer right away. And then as I was gathering all those together, I saw a lot of the exercises come through and different invocations or prayers that would be given during a group channeling that we were doing, or an exercise or a workshop. So we might be doing a workshop on the divine feminine, and all of a sudden anchoring to the new heal, hold Mother Earth would come in as a prayer. And so we would use that one as well. So I began to see that, that these tools are super helpful. A lot of my clients have said, gee, it'd be great if you could put the prayers all in one place so I could find them. So you may know from working with me a little bit, Emilie, that I'm not like super organized in that way with files on my computer or this or that. So it's like, yeah, let's put it in a little book. And that's how the book came together. So
that's really wonderful, and I wanted to ask you about prayers in general. Like, is that something that you've always had with you, like the act of praying, or is that something that came a little bit later in your life? And because prayers can mean so many things. And I think the first thing that it may refer to for most people is like prayer at the church, or like something you have to learn by heart, and that doesn't often resonate with you, but like you just have to do more like a norm or a ritual. But I feel like, at least speaking for myself, like the word prayer has really evolved in a different meaning, and it's hard to combine like a set of like guidance into something very personal. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your own perspective on like, what is a prayer? How did prayers came into your life? And how do you connect with prayers now, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And I think that, it's really something to deeply think about, is what is our introduction to prayer? So as you said, as a child, your introduction might have been given a prayer or a chant or a mantra from your family's background of how they connected spiritually. Mine was Catholic. I was brought up as Roman Catholic, and I went to Catholic school. So I have early memories of, kneel down and say your prayers at night kind of thing, and being given something to memorize. And then, of course, going to school all the time. There was prayers in the morning. We would go over to church a lot, which was next to the school, and kneel on the little kneeling things and say prayers. And they were memorized. And I stumbled over a lot of them, not even knowing what the words meant, so it was a memorization type of thing. Now, as I got older, I recognized that it was kind of a fallback. And, there's actually a song out now by a character called Jelly Roll that's, I only talk to God when I need a favor. And I began to see that my prayers were something that would come up when I was scared, that there was a greater thing out there beyond the trouble I was going to get in at school or with my parents. And I would be asking for that favor, So on and off as I grew, I thought about that, gee, the only time we talk to God is when we need a favor, that was sort of there. So my prayers were not super connected to a receiving aspect. They were super connected to an asking aspect, Save me from getting in trouble for my report card, save me from getting in trouble because I lost my glasses. It was very much a savior kind of receiving thing. And I don't really believe that I thought anyone was going to help me anyway, as a child, based on the life that I was living as a child. So when I started opening up to spirit, prayer was not a word I was using in my vocabulary. I was using channeling or connecting. I was, hearing voices. The voices were supportive. Some of my early experiences in hearing voices and opening were hearing phrases in my head that I had learned as a child, like phrases from the Bible, and they would go through my head and they would change. Like one of them that's very powerful was, many are called, but few are chosen. So that is a strong phrase in the Bible. And I would hear that phrase, and then I would hear a voice say, many are called, but few choose to go. And a teaching that somehow you had to be more involved. There wasn't a great magic being out there with a wand that was, directing your life. You were somehow directing your life. So I think that began to bring that awareness in that we had something to do with our own sovereignty, that we were here not to, to find a savior and be saved, but to learn how to save ourselves, quote unquote. And so fast forward a little bit, and I'm channeling, and my path is stronger, and I'm learning from the Master Saint Germain, and Saint Germain starts talking about these powers that we have as human beings that we don't use. And he says, you have the power of blessing, you have the power of prayers. Begin to use that. And so I began to realize that prayers were a little bit different. I don't know the etymology of the word. It would be interesting to kind of look that up. But, prayer to me is a conversation between myself and the deities, spirit, the angels. And it's about giving, and it's about receiving. It's not just about getting, it's about developing a connection and recognizing that we have these abilities. So that was a really powerful for me to hear, like, what we can bless, isn't that only for special people, like, a Rinpoche or a priest or a cardinal or a pope? And it was like, it felt like we were opening up to a part of ourselves, the inner God, goddess self, the inner spiritual being, and owning that and taking that back. So prayer is a really big, powerful word to me. And I think the beginning to just have a form that has been successful for somebody, and to share that form is like an opening to your own personal connection with your spiritual being. So if you use the prayer to Kuan Yin, it starts with, dearest Lady Kuan Yin, I call on you to help me love and accept myself fully. I ask that, and to love and accept others fully. So I noticed when she first gave me the prayer that she's asking me to connect, to acknowledge her, that she's asking me to love myself. That the first words she gave us were, dearest Lady Kuan Yin, I call on you to help me love and accept myself fully. I ask that you grant me a full measure of compassion for myself and compassion for others. So she's starting this awareness that you have the ability to be loving, to be compassionate, to be blessing other people. So, on the simplest level, a smile or a kind word is a blessing. I think we minimize that, and we look to what we consider power in this world, which unfortunately seems to always be money.
Yes. No, that's so powerful, and that's so beautiful actually to understand like your own perspective with prayers and how they came into your life. And so you're saying that your favorite prayer is Kuan Yin. Is that a prayer you say every day? Is that something that you feel, whenever the need comes? Like, what is your actual practice with prayers?
Well, my actual practice would generally come around using mantras. So mantras are sort of repetitive prayers or statements that help the mind, corral the mind, harness the mind and keep it from running around in different directions. So they give you a focus, which is going to make your prayers stronger. So generally I'll start with a mantra. The mantra attributed to Kuan Yin happens to be Om Mani Padme Hum, which is 6 syllables that are probably one of the most beautiful mantras, on the planet. And so I'll go back and forth with doing a mantra practice. We're with our group now from our master's classes doing the mantra practice from Prantaparamita, which is from the Paramitas, the 6 Paramitas, which is from the Buddhist text, the Heart Sutra, the collection of steps and ways that you can be a better human being and stay on the track. So I use all of these tools to stay on the track. And in fact, in the prayer book, the Prantaparamita mantra is in there since we're saying it currently, and this book just came out. And so, getting your mind calm is going to strengthen your ability to have that conversation. Just like if I'm having a conversation with you on the phone and we're just chatting, if I'm fully present in the moment, my connection with you is going to be a lot more powerful than if I'm thinking of this or that, or I'm texting on my phone, texting while I'm talking to you and I'm reading text and I'm doing other things, because I'm more present in that moment. And so being more present with spirit, it's the same way. Being more present with yourself in the moment allows you to be more present with spirit. And my practice would be some daily meditation, some connecting to Kuan Yin. And yeah, I love that prayer. There's a little altar in my room. And when I wake up and look across the room, I see Kuan Yin. She's on the altar. And then there's a picture of the Dalai Lama, and, makes me smile. And so, you kind of start the day by greeting her, dearest Lady Kuan Yin. There you are. And then maybe, the
It's a
mantras.
nice way to start the day for sure. And how do you relate prayers or invocation or like words of wisdom with nature, with the nature world? Like, I know you're very connected to, flowers and bees and, even the animal world and your cats. And do you sometimes receive some kind of like prayers from them or like for them? How do you interact with the natural world that's visible to us, but that's not really in the human form?
I think that that's a really great topic to bring up, because since I've been working with the invocations, and particularly the years where they spoke about, we're bringing new energy to the planet, you're bringing it into your third dimension, you're integrating energy, and the realization that everything is energy, our thoughts. So that's why we do the meditative concentration, so that we can actually make our prayers stronger. So Spirit often says, when I say, well, what do I do? How do we handle this energy? It always says, go to nature. Find a spot on your earth that's natural. Get away from the sharp buildings, go out by the trees, the flowing water, and, calm yourself down and breathe with it. And you begin to hear this whole symphony of life that's there, that's very clear on who they are. So trees and bees and flowers and plants, they know who they are. They don't get caught up with thinking, oh my gosh, I want to look like Beyonce, or, I need to be powerful like this person, or I need to have a new outfit. They're robed beautifully. They know who they are. And thousands of years, sure, they do develop and change to a degree, but they don't decide that they don't want to be a tree anymore, that they want to be, a dog or whatever. So I think that the power of nature is the consistency, is the strong presence in the moment that it holds. And it's the ability to bring us back in the moment. So when we go hiking and we get to the top of the hill, or we look at a tree, our presence just change. It just connects, with all this life form. And you get uplifted, you feel a difference, you recognize that there's symmetry, but you also recognize that there is order. There's a type of order in the universe, and the sun and the moon and the sun setting, and all of a sudden you let go and stop trying to impose your order on everything. I don't know if that makes sense, but
It
Saint
does.
Germain, yeah, he had just said, go out and be in nature. And so words are what we use to communicate at this time in our evolution, although I believe the energy and the connection that we have that goes beyond words is way more powerful. But I think the words are the doors that open you, like the beginning of a prayer, a practice with the breath. They open you to get to that stillness where you can find that emptiness and you can find that connection, and you can really be fully present in the moment. And it's pretty impossible not to be connected to universal life force when you're out in nature, you're fully present to it, you're connecting to it. So for example, I had a really bad headache yesterday, and I was not feeling well, but I said, I really do need to go outside. And when you feel really bad, sometimes all you want to do is sort of huddle in the corner or take pills or something. And I did go outside. It was very cold. I bundled up. I put my mala beads in my pocket, and I just went outside and breathed. And I did 10 rounds of the mantra, the mantra that we were speaking of, the Pranjaparamita, while in nature, and that it's sort of like blended in with the bird song and blended in with the plants. And I lived near a stream, and the stream was just, bubbling, and it all became one. And my headache was still there, but it was much more tolerable. And I was lifted into the moment and not just fixating on one thing that I couldn't change in the moment, but changing what I could. And that was opening instead of closing down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's actually wonderful. And I think, to your point earlier about the flowers and, the bees knowing who they are, I think perhaps, like prayers are a door, to getting to know who we are at the end of the day. When we're able to communicate and connect on that level, then suddenly it's easier to see, like who you are. And I think in a way we're all trying to find out who we are, deeply. And I also had a question a little bit related to that, about destiny. There's, those thoughts and, those schools of thoughts, who actually embrace the fact that, we each have our own destiny and, we're on this path, and no matter what, we're just following that path, and we feel we have some kind of like control over it, and really we don't. And I feel like, to your point earlier also about, prayers not only being about asking for something or like maybe controlling something, maybe the best way to approach that connection with the divine and that communication, which essentially prayers are, would be more to ask, not ask, but like just let go and then just be open to your destiny and who you are. What do you think of that? How much power do we have over ourselves and our destiny? Or is it more a power of surrendering at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's, one of those profound questions of the ages. When you were speaking to it and describing some of the, the ways of being, you're talking about nature, I immediately thought of bees and how I kept bees for a while, and you could hear them in the background buzzing all the time. I had 3 hives, which I can't imagine what it's like to have like 20 hives or something. I had 3 hives on my property. And, when I had to move, I found a home for my bees, and, my neighbors came and took the hives, and I didn't hear the hum anymore. Every morning I would go out, I would open my window, I'd be doing the dishes, looking out towards the hives, and I would hear them. So their vibration was there, and it was like tiny ohms. I felt like they were constantly ohming to spirit. And I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but I always 24/7 have a tape of just ohming going on in my house. It's not a tape anymore, it's digital, but it's just the ohming in the background. And when it's not there, you notice it. And when it is there, you don't notice it unless you're kind of tuning in the moment. It just becomes part of you, like your breath. And so I think that, to your point earlier, being out in nature, you actually kind of fit in with the whole, which is about what we're learning as we're here. We're learning to let go of this I presence, me, I, it has to look like this. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it becomes like all encompassing part of the whole, just like the bees are. So we do have our part in the whole. And I suppose when you ask the question, do you surrender to it? I find that if you can be fully present in the moment and you can let go of anxiousness, that you do sort of just plug into that universal orchestra and you find your place in it, just like the trees do and the insects do and the, predators do and the worms do. You find your place in it, and that kind of is your destiny. So I think if we get to a place of peace and we truly get to a place of being fully present in the moment, then we are there. There is no place to go. And even this Pranchaparamita Sutra is Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisattva. And it's basically saying going, always going to the Buddha, to the energy, to the enlightenment. And so step by step, we are going in the right direction if we learn to be at peace and fully present in the moment. That's the crux of it. That's sort of challenging too, I think, because we're, designed in our brains to look forward, to have, a goal. I once read this article that may be helpful in addressing this question for the ages. And it was about the difference between a goal and an intention. So setting an intention, my intention is to live peacefully, let's say. And my goal is to write books on peace, to have peace talks, to lead, whatever the goal is. The goal is going to change. The intention is the thing that's the permeating all energy. My intention is to live with joy. My intention is to be happy. And then your mind thinks, well, I would be happy if I had a mansion in France, or I would be happy if I had $5,000 in the bank, or, well, no, probably most people say $100,000, I don't know, whatever, millions of dollars. And then, you get off track. You get caught up in trying to pursue a goal. And if it doesn't happen the way you wanted, then all of a sudden you feel like you're unhappy. You're not living your destiny.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we had the intention to live with joy, to be fully present in the moment and to be joyful, we actually would be surrendering into being who we are.
And do you think like that destiny and that sense of like, fulfilling your mission, do you feel it's evolving like collectively as well? Do you think like, the intention of, society maybe like 100 years ago is different this time? And what would it be according to you? What would be the intention of our time?
Yeah, so the intention of our time is the collective consciousness moving into a much more compassionate way of being, less material and more spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first woke up, I have to be honest with you, part of what drove me to wake up was this fear that we were coming, the end of the world was ending, our world was a mess, blah, 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 blah. And that was back in the 80s. We're still here. I began to fear a polar shift. Back in the 80s, I began to think we're going to have a polar shift. We're going to have like another ice age or whatever kind of age that we had that sort of killed everything off and you get to start over. And some of the words that came in when I started praying and I started meditating, I started running around looking for ways to be peaceful. Listen to that. I mean, running around looking for ways to be peaceful. There's a little bit of an oxymoron going on there. But
Which is the life of many people here in New York, believe me.
Yeah, and I see that a lot, even with people on the spiritual path. It's like, I want to like rush to get to this place of peace. And yeah, doesn't make perfect sense. But the idea was this collective energy was coming in, and they said, Melissa, the shift is going to be not the shift of the poles, but the shift of the polarity from material to spiritual. So I've been watching for 40 years where this consciousness of being less material is really hitting, let's say, this area of the United States that I live in, where materialism and capitalism was a huge driver for everybody. The American dream is not about being peacefully happy and compassionate with one another. The American dream is about everybody having lots of money in the bank kind of thing, which there's nothing wrong with people wanting to have an abundant life. No, I'm not saying that. But the point is, Spirit said you're going to shift, your polar shift is going to be from materialism to spiritualism. So I've been watching this. As it's progressed, you can look in the prayer book and see these invocations progressing from 15, 16, 17, 18, 2020, and so on and so forth, till we get up to 23 here, and now 24. And the one for 24 came through as I was completing the book a few weeks ago, and it's being fully present in the moment. So the alchemical trick, the that Saint Germain, who is the quintessential alchemist, the energy of this age, the age of Aquarius, is the energy of transmutating what is into something else. So it's not changing lead into gold. It's changing fear into love. It's changing sorrow into joy. It's changing frenzied into peacefulness. And that is what all of these tools, whether it's meditation, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's mantras, whether it's prayers on your knees, whether it's hiking and, it's chewing, being constant frenzied with social media and stuff, whatever it is this ability to come to be peaceful in the moment. And that's where the transformation happens. Now, what is so incredibly challenging for the human mind, which has all these abilities and can go off in thousands of directions, as you well know, as I well know, is stilling it so the transformation can take place. So I believe that we're here for this polarity shift, for this paradigm shift in consciousness, for this movement from materialism into spiritualism, and the collective consciousness is in the process of changing. So on a material level, which we are in a material form, we live in a material world, when the shift takes place, when the alchemy takes place, and if it went in a pop in a moment, it would just be that magic wand. You'd see all of a sudden the world is peaceful, the war is over, people are helping one another. But it doesn't go that fast in the progress of our understanding. There's sort of a change that takes place. And so what we're seeing now is everything that's not working on the planet, like war, like fighting, is coming to the surface, and people are beginning to see this is futile. We're not going to get any better off by fighting. We've been doing it for thousands of years, and we get the same result: pain, sorrow, suffering. How are we going to transform that into joy?
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with each person. It is not going to be, the perfect president coming in, the perfect king coming in, the perfect emperor, empress, goddess, one person. It's every single one of us. It's a collective movement. And I think that's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's great hope for sure. And I see like a lot of people are, to your point, like just questioning the way like things used to happen and seeing that it's not working anyways. I also wonder like the role of artificial intelligence in that, awakening to spirituality, if it's going to be helping or if it's going to be one of those things that will have to transmute or like transform, our relationship with those machines, or if on the opposite, they will be like tools to help us going back to ourselves. It's an important question, I feel like. What do you think?
Well, I think that's another one of those big giant questions for the ages that will be being, pondered on and even fought over, with some people that are still coming from a fear base. But let me say this. I believe that the system that we're in, so that is the body and the metaphysical body, and the metaphysical bodies, the aura, the chakras, this whole system that we're in is nothing more than an amazing organic computer. So, in a sense, the intelligence of the energy that's in each one of us that goes out when a person's body ends, when your body shuts down and it's finished, everybody will tell you that so-and-so is no longer there. So we begin to recognize that it's not the body. I'm more than my body. I think there's an exercise in the book that talks about practicing I'm more than my body, I'm more than my thoughts, I'm more than my mind, I'm more than my feelings. So we do recognize that to a degree, although I think that we give greater credence to our physical thoughts or feelings in the moment, and let them take over instead of reminding ourselves that there is this divine intelligence that's operating the system that I call Melissa, that you call Emilie. Okay. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I think we're reproducing ourselves very crudely. So as amazing as these computers are, and as amazing as these computers have progressed since the first big clunky ones came out back in the 70s or whenever we had these big monitors and these big machines. Now people have a little watch, on their arm, a tiny computer that you probably couldn't have imagined. I think it's like a reflection of, the amazing organic computer that we are. And as we're learning to manage our own minds and manage ourselves, we will learn to manage AI. So let me back that up just a tiny bit. So the greatest damage, according to, say, someone brilliant like the Dalai Lama, that we can do is with our minds. It's our minds that come up with these ideas that, oh, somebody's taking land, I need to take it back, or somebody's hurting my feelings, I need to do this, or it's our minds that invent, that take the invention of the splitting of the atom and make it into a bomb to destroy other people. It's our minds that create these fences and these walls driven by our fears. So it's our minds driven by our fears that create the actions that have been so separatist and so, dually polarized. And we're seeing that polarization out in the world right now. We're seeing what damage we've done with our minds, with our feelings, with our thoughts, and we're realizing we can't change it physically. So I believe that paradigm shift that we're having goes along with the awareness of AI. We can either create that into a monster, or we can recognize it's just a part of starting to understand more of the universe and who we are and how our creation has taken place. I don't think it's something to fear any more than it's fearing, the guns that we've created. I think that the fear, if we're to look at anything and we're to recognize it's in harnessing the minds and empowering the minds, and it has to be done within every individual. And so the polarity shift is possible for every individual. I think when the collective becomes stronger, directed from love than directed from fear, which I believe we are on the way to, then we're going to see changes just kind of happening automatically. We could go on and talk about these things of what the future of the earth might look like, if the majority doesn't choose to move into that polarity shift of love and healing, and what might happen to those who are moving into that higher consciousness, and what might happen to those who are staying in the lower consciousness. But, this is a conversation that could go on for a while, The new healed whole Mother Earth, the new healed whole Mother Earth becomes very important here. And we are looking at a time when we're seeing tremendous changes in humanity, and a pull towards changing more towards love, for sure. People want that. At the same time, we have massive amount of wars going on, people starving, a lot of terrible things happening right now. And as that goes on, I'm reminded that at a certain point, the new healed whole Mother Earth vibration contacted me through spirit to remind me that the earth is intelligent, and the earth has a role and a pattern, and, to use your term from earlier, a destiny. And the earth knows where she's going. She's finished with the way of life, with mankind, humankind being the steward of the earth. And she's moving away from all the things that she's been trapped under. Us harnessing the power of the earth and using it to make more money, to kill people, whatever. That's not working for the earth. So there is a new healed whole Mother Earth that's just juxtaposed right next to this earth that we see that's sort of falling apart, that's dying from pollution and environmental issues and changing. And so she's reminded me a long time ago, look, whether you get it or not, your humanity is in for a change, and you're going to start seeing it. So she's telling me this I'm hearing this 40 years ago, and the earth is in alignment with it, and she's moving towards it. And if you don't get with it, she's going to make the change happen. So to me, when I start to see the increase in earth changes, earthquakes, fires, glacier melts, all of this kind of stuff, diseases in plants and trees, I recognize that the earth herself is starting the cleansing process. Whether we keep up with it or not, that's up to us, So back at it, we're not going to be allowed to completely destroy this planet in the way that it would cause a destruction in the universe. It's time for, us to wake up and move into the next vibration. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but I think that we sometimes forget the power of the earth. She's marching along to her destiny, and we're part of that because we're here at this time.
Yes, I think it's actually very powerful all you've shared, because that's the answer. The answer is, like the earth herself and us, constituting part of this earth and just, like flowing with it rather than trying to control it. And I think you're right, like the greater system of things is way more powerful than we think. And I know, it sounds so difficult to practice, but the real answer also is that we are the change. We have to make that change. And it's, and I know you mentioned that a lot when you have, like your full moon channeling or like, other way of teaching. But, even if like you're like so against the subject or like so against the war, for example, like, it's really hard, but we have to look at all those people like they're part of us and we're part of them. And that, I think, is the real work we all have to do in a way.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is challenging to look at the things that we judge or don't like and accept them as part of the self. And acceptance, it's such a cool word, like surrender and acceptance. They're beautiful words when you think of it. They're like the wind breezing through a tropical garden. It's just like this. Everything is there and it's in this perfection, and you let go of the struggle and you let go of being closed and you open. And I think people don't understand acceptance. They maybe understand the word intellectually, but when you let it go and you feel the energy of it, it's just sort of floating into this moment where you can just be still and you drop the hardening part and the contracted part and you're just kind of open. That's without struggle. It's without resistance. It's without anger towards something. It's just, oh, this is the way it is. I could sit here and be frustrated about this war going on, and just keep looking at it and thinking of it over and over until I get so tight and cracked up and stiff. And then I start to get angry, and then I want to blame one side or the other. And at the end of the day, I mean, they both have points, they're both trying to live and ultimately underneath it all find whatever they believe happiness is. And so when I go back to that, I can accept that wholeness in myself. I can open again. I can flower, just like your beautiful flowers. They open, the petals open, and there it is, the beauty and the joy of the moment. And the recognizing that, take the lotus. Lotuses, I believe, are only around for 3 days. When they pop up, they open, and they're just beautiful. And then they start the process of dissolving again. And the earth teaches us that with the seasons, with plants, but we say, no, we like this part better. And then we try to freeze it and control it. And the flow that you're talking about is completely gone. We dam up the river. It's not ultimately going to work. It wants to go back to flowing. So we have to work in harmony and learn about the flow of things and learn about give and take. And finally, to me, it takes me back to the breath. I think that's why every meditation, every prayer, every let's calm you down starts with people saying, okay, breathe, breathe in, breathe out, because you have a full cycle. Remember, when you're born, the first thing you do in the physical is breathe in. And when you die, the last thing you do is breathe out. So it's a complete life cycle in every moment. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. That's so powerful. That's like the best prayer at the end of the day, just to breathe.
It is. And Spirit has said that over and over. It's a complete cycle. And I believe there's more to the breath than we even currently know. We certainly know that conscious breathing will calm us down. You know, every doctor, every psychological person now is saying, hey, breathe, focus on the breath. And then even saying, be mindful, that's watch your thoughts, So
Yes.
the recognition is beginning to go across the board that at the end of the day, we have to calm the mind. So I think just breathing and calming the mind, like you said, is the perfect prayer.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I could talk to you for hours, and it's almost been an hour. I think it felt like 5 minutes. But one last question I would love to ask you, just like on a personal note. So, out of like the prayer book right now, which is your favorite prayers of this day? Like this, holidays time we're in right now. Like, do you have like some kind of like one of those prayers that you wrote in that book? Like, is there one in particular that you would want to share right now?
Ooh, I think it moment by moment. I mean, just any of the different ones. Of course, I have my favorites like Kuan Yin. I love to go to Kuan Yin. During the day, I call on Michael, burning bright, bring the sword of truth and light often. I also call on Saint Germain and Green Tara and Mother Mary. So, I think that what the prayer book and the exercises and the, affirmations and different things in it, they just become this cacophony, like this sort of symphony, and I'll pull different notes out of it in different times of the day to help me stay connected, to help me stay in that space where I'm at peace. I would say in a way I don't have a particular one.
All of them depending on the moment, right?
Yeah, and of course, for me, that Kuan Yin is sort of my sort of number one personal guide, Kuan Yin and maybe Lord Vitalion and New Healed Whole Mother Earth and Tara and Mary and Michael, so those are very personal to me because I work with them so closely. Yeah.
Beautiful. And thank you for sharing all of that with us. And also what I love about that prayer book is that it's not too big, so you can really like put it in your purse and, like go on your day with it. And, as you know, I love to travel. So I think it's going to be a great travel companion that I will bring along. Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you for doing the prayer book and thank you for everything you've shared today.
Most welcome. Thanks for having me. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. You too.